Year after year, these activists make claims about women in violence, women in depression, women in eating disorders, women in workplace injustice, to support their views. Over the years, I have looked carefully at many of these claims. And what I have found is that much of the supporting evidence, mostly victim statistics, is misleading and often flat out wrong. Consider the issue of the so-called gender wage gap. How many times have you heard that for the same work, women receive 77 cents for every dollar a man earns? This charge is constantly repeated by feminist activists and their supporters. Yet it is so deeply misleading as to border on outright falsehood. 23-cent gender pay gap is simply the difference between the average earnings of all men and women working full-time. It does not take account for differences in occupations, positions, education, job tenure, or hours worked per week.
But on to the equal pay gender gap myth. Please note in this instance we'll not actually be including the full 51 genders available today, but the main two, because, you know, science. The myth that women get paid less for the exact same job as men comes from one poorly interpreted statistic that merely compares the median earnings of women versus men. That stat did not include people of different genders working in the same industry, the same job, or even the same amount of hours. So the pay gap myth is untrue for a few reasons, but let's start with simple economics. If I'm a business owner and I can get away with paying a woman half of what I'd pay a man for the exact same job, I'm never hiring a man again. I'd start hiring on cup size and fire every last Schwanson on staff, if only to increase profits.
You have to understand where the figures come from, right? These
Yeah,
figures.
you must understand.
These figures are. You're going to excuse me,
No, it's all right.
mansplaining, aren't you?
No,
these
doing
figures
it
come
that
from
way, so-
averages across society. They don't take into account the different life choices that women make. The reality is that women do prefer a more balanced life. When they go to work, even if they don't have babies, they take longer holidays. They tend to take more holidays. And the reason that you know, they are paid more, up to about 30, 35, 39, depending on whose figures you believe. The reason that flips
No,
at
only
the
between
end,
30 and 39.
the reason, no, that's actually not true. The reason that the figures flip after that age is because women make different life choices.
Right.
And if you take those life choices into account, no serious economist believes this stuff. It's repeated by politicians right up to President Obama, but no serious economist takes the wage gap seriously.
Caroline.
But what would your opinion on this?
I mean, it's not my opinion, it's statistical fact. This is bullshit. Okay, the 78 cents on the dollar myth is just that. It's a myth. Time magazine actually found as early as 2010 that in the 50 biggest cities in the United States, women were actually earning more than men. If they had the same job qualifications, the same number of years in the workforce, the same number of hours worked, the reason that women on average are paid less is because women take time off, they take less risky jobs, they don't take as much time at work, they would rather be home with their families. These are choices that women make, and it's astonishing to me that feminists actually degrade those choices as though it's a terrible thing when a woman takes time off. Well, it's her choice. I mean, I thought that was your whole deal. You know, my wife is a perfect example of this. My wife is a doctor, right? She's just graduating from UCLA Medical School. She finished all of her classes. She's just graduating in about 6 weeks. And she's due in 5, so we'll see if she she's having our second baby in 5. So we'll see if she's able to walk up to the podium. But But she took a year off during medical school because when we had our first kid, she wanted to take a year off to be with our first child, right? That was her choice. I took off 4 days, right? That's relatively typical because men are not the ones, you know, for a variety of reasons, including how much they want to do it. Men are typically not the ones in the home. And by the way, I'm speaking as somebody who, when I was growing up, my dad was a stay-at-home dad and my mom worked.